we're combining workforce training, public art, fabrication projects in public spaces, and all of these programs, or all of those elements, were distinct things that we were doing independently, and then over the course of a number of years and different kind of grant opportunities and things, we combine them into what we're going to talk about today, which is the creation of public art fences for subsidized housing through workforce training programs at the Steelyard, which is a lot. But each one of those distinct things we're going to touch on kind of briefly. But first, I just want to give a little bit of history on the Steelyard before we get right into it. So the Steelyard was founded in about 2003. We have a site, an old Steelyard that was bought in 2001 by our founders, Clay and Nick, who started a nonprofit organization with the dream that an old Steelyard could become a new Steelyard. It could become a place where artists could come to make things, where people could learn how to make things, where people could be involved in industrial crafts on whatever scale was relevant to the community, and kind of let the community responsibly create that goal. So we've done that in a number of ways over the last 7 years. But really began with studio residents. People like Jillian Christie, who's speaking tomorrow, was actually the first resident at the Steelyard. Came in to rent space as a professional artist who needed a place to make something and didn't have the resources in Rhode Island. So a number of people were kind of doing that, renting space, collaborating on projects. The nonprofit was founded and people started teaching classes. So who's going to start teaching? Well, the people who are working there as professional artists, doing ceramics, doing blacksmithing, doing fabrication projects, started teaching classes to the community that were tuition-based courses. So now we had working artists also as professional teachers in a community setting and a collaborative space. And around that same time, we also started to be approached about private or public art commissions. So at that point I was working in the shop too and started to organize teams of artists to respond to public commissions. So we did a fence for a community garden where each panel of the fence is some fancy crazy thing, or 20 trash cans for a local neighborhood where each trash can was different, and got to work with a kind of ever expanding and changing team of artists to do those projects. So then we had public art classes and professional artists all kind of sharing the same space, expanding mediums, and community members coming in to take courses and stuff like that. So from there, it didn't take long until we started introducing youth classes, working with different groups in the community, different high schools and things like that, and recognized that there was a whole educational aspect that we had kind of been overlooking in terms of reaching a younger or less experienced audience, and to try to get that in. And I think that kind of goes into our talk.
Yeah, and we apologize because when we developed the PowerPoint, which actually we're not good at it, making PowerPoints, this is our first attempt, so we apologize. And we don't talk in the PowerPoint kind of way, so we might miss or skip or, so we're sorry if we're not at par with the presentation. But as Howie mentioned, connecting public art to the community was something that started early on in the organization. We're a very young organization. We just started in 2003. And thankfully, the group that actually talked to us about the talk today asked us to narrow it down because we can talk about the Steelyard for a long period of time. But we, when thinking about some of the training skills that we have, we started thinking about what were our strengths as an organization. We sat down and we discovered that the surveys, the exit surveys that our students were signing up for, really talked about the quality of education they were receiving, because instructors were not teaching because they had to. They really were interested. The first classes that started were actually teachers really invested in offering those skills to other individuals. So I think it was one of the first programs was a high school program, and that was really important to them. So we had that asset. We also had the asset of having artists that were not just focused in one area. So we had artists who knew about design, fabrication process, and not just in metalwork, but also, there were printmakers. there were ceramic artists. There were all sorts of artists who were learning from each other, and they were able to provide all these skills, all this mixture of skills to their students. So that was one of our biggest strengths in the
Well, and
program.
I think design and fabrication is one thing that kind of started coming together for us. Getting teams of artists to work together to develop things, going out into the community and trying to figure out the capacity of our shop. You know, we can handle making 16 trash cans. Could we handle making 20? Could we handle making 100? You know, how many students can we take in a class? And so I think kind of our early experimentation helped us sort of set those boundaries through different courses, figure out what the appropriate class size was for, you know, safety and effectiveness through teaching industrial trades, and also applying it to kind of creative projects and trying to figure out the boundaries there. Next one.
So yeah, like I mentioned, we have really great qualified instructors.
Yeah, and I think the instructors kind of learned through that process too. You know, as instructors, some of whom came to us with educational backgrounds or backgrounds in instructing, and others who really came as like, I'm an artist, here's my skills, I'm very passionate, I want to share them. And then from there, we've kind of worked with them to develop lesson plans and things. Okay.
So,
well,
yes. Identifying community needs was really important to us. So one of the things that we looked at, just thinking about the new programs that
sorry,
we're having.
this is the Steelyard here.
Looks very green now.
Yep.
So, you know. We started thinking about our neighborhoods and what were the needs that they had and how we can help them. So after evaluating ourselves, we evaluated our neighborhoods. And we're really in an area where there's all the neighborhoods that are around us are very low income, and there's a lot of absentee landlords, and there are also a lot of foreclosures. And this was even happening before the economy, you know, went bust. So we had those issues facing, and so something that came to us was this. I received some paperwork where they actually had statistics of who was needing like employment needs, and we kept receiving information from some of the local companies that needed more welders, and how they had all these ideas of what the need of welders was going to be in the future. And also we had, and then we had also the, one of the things was like, they also needed employment, the residents around the area. So,
well, and we noticed specifically that there was sort of an unrecognized and a group slipping through the cracks, specifically in our neighborhood, which was kind of an 18 to 24-year-old sort of emerging professional age group. And we noticed that we actually had a gap in that area as well, that we had programs for youth engaging with high schools and different social service communities. We had programs for, you know, a lot of
individuals who had disposable
adults.
income.
Yeah.
You know, their programs are open enrollment are 15 and up. And even though the programs are subsidized up to 50%, those people have to have some money to pay for the classes or pay for some of the materials. So there was that gap that we were not touching, and that was the gap that we found that we could actually reach out to. And that's how we decided to start our workforce programs.
Yeah, and so specifically to address needs in the neighborhood, you know, one of the things we did was we looked at how can we work with local, how can we work in our neighborhood? Like, what can we physically do in our neighborhood? Most of our students, like Alma said, were not coming from our neighborhood. They were coming from other neighborhoods and bringing that income in to take courses at the Steelyard. But because of our place in the neighborhood, we had a really high concentration of our public projects going out into the neighborhood. We were doing tree guards for the local street and working with the community to build them and stuff like that. And so kind of art fencing with local housing came to us as an idea, and so we started experimenting with our different programs to get all of the pieces we needed for it. And our first major workforce program was paid for through the Reinvestment Recovery Act. And the city of Providence put together a little workforce program to get arts organizations around the city to train people in metalworking. And this was, you know, so what we did, we came up with this project where they would make, the students would make these big fence panels, basically to practice how to weld, and then could express themselves, come up with their own artwork, and fill in these kind of medallions. We made 45 of them that actually go around the Steelyard.
Yeah.
And so this was their, interpretation of the Reinvestment and Recovery Act logo, but again, paying tribute to the people who were supporting the program, which is now, permanently on our fence. And the city of Providence, the big orange P is there too, and other stuff.
And just so you know, most of the students that were coming to us, they actually did not come to us as interested in the arts. They were interested in getting a job skill. They heard the stereo was cool. Somebody recommended them for the program. So we were really focusing on that. They were all low income, and they also had other barriers that prevented them from, getting a job. So either a disability, learning disability, or they were parents, or there were other issues that were really making it hard for them to get a job or getting skills to get a job.
So in terms of, one of the things that we did was, and can you go back one slide?
Sure.
And just go back again? Or no, forward again? Sorry. So you can see how this house, this is an affordable house that was actually then sold by a local CDC at a very subsidized rate to an income qualified household below median, et cetera. They approached us. We had done some work with them in the past, other projects in the community, and we were like, okay, let's come up with a design for it. So then the next slide sort of shows, what a group of artists working with some of our workforce students came up with to, just a simple design that then becomes a kind of designator, something a little different than sort of the standard fence that would go there. And I think that, a project like this allowed us to extend the work training experience of someone in the program. So we're doing a workforce program. We get a certain amount of money to pay the teacher, to pay the participants for their time, and then afterwards we're able to hire them back at a professional rate to work with as part of a team to do something like this, which just builds upon their skills. Local funders.
Yeah, so that relates to the same issue that for us it's really important that everybody in the community knows who we are and they really have an understanding of the kind of work that we do, so they feel compelled to take a chance in these projects, because we are hiring people who have no experience metalworking or no experience in the arts, and they're looking for one of a kind. They're looking for something unique. They're looking for something of quality. So we really talk to them about the process of training that they get before they actually begin working on the project. And this is one of the projects where we had 6 students come from the neighborhood that is right next to us to build 6 bike racks for the community. And there were individuals from the community, and the idea was that once they got those skills, not only will they be able to hire to work with us, but actually provide those services for their neighbors, because that was, there's a lot of fencing there in that area, and that people might not know about the Steelyard, but they know that their neighbor might have those skills.
And I think also, one of the reasons that we wanted to point out the partnering is we're not a social service organization. We are not the best at soliciting proposals from folks in need of work opportunities and things like that. But there are other organizations in our community who do that and do that very well. For this project, we teamed with a local housing organization, and they were referring people to us who lived in their subsidized housing. So they're like, okay, here's a list of folks, 18 to 24-year-old range who are in need of some work and who we know qualify income-wise for a program like this because they live in our subsidized housing, and we want to try to make sure that we're training a group that all has sort of a, geographic or social identity to them. And so they were able to help kind of steer people towards us for the program.
And it also, we're going to talk about that. Would also help us figure out that these individuals that were coming into us, and a lot of them were really disenfranchised with other organizations. So if they already had somebody who could answer to them, either a former teacher or even from an organization, then we can keep track of them, because they change houses, they change their address all the time. They don't have phone numbers that are consistent. So we don't have that that capacity, but those organizations do.
Yeah, I guess, just to kind of talk about a little bit what Alma was saying before, a lot of students come to us for work skills. There's kind of two groups that come to us. Some people come to us really because they're interested in arts focus, and other people are really looking for kind of hands-on trade training, and kind of working with those groups. The one law that applies to all of them is that there's a high expectation of quality of work in both the art world and the fabrication world, and that we need to make sure we're training people well to go out there and do that.
Yeah, and we have to develop adequate curriculum. We actually talk to the students every day at the end of the program to discuss what worked and what didn't. So there's all those evaluations, not only at the end of the program, but constantly, so we can actually readapt the program as it's happening. And that relates to that, to be responsive to the learning needs. Everybody learns differently. And in terms of funding, we receive grants that are very different sizes, so we actually have to accommodate what skills the students can get within the time. We have to be realistic about it. So we're not going to select the size of the Steelyard fence, which was an 11-week program versus a program that is only 7 days long. So we have to accommodate to that.
And I think also because the way we do also, this is also a kind of social entrepreneurship a little bit, that sometimes the person we're selling the fence to doesn't know or even really talk to us about the fact that we're having a workforce program build the fence. That's not our sale point. Our sale point is you're getting a cool fence for a house that's going to be designed customly and well built. And so then we I guess repeat.
This is just part of the process that we go through when we're, they come up with their designs, and then we put them in a format where the client can see it, and it's a very, it's very different than just having like drawings by hands. It makes it more professional.
Yeah, and I think, it's probably about time to open it up to questions. We have, I think, 3 more slides or 4 more or something. But if anyone has any questions at this point, maybe we can just.
The process of making the fences and engaging all the people. What happens on the flip side with the fences as far as when they go up in neighborhoods and things? Is there some sense of pride, or is there a sense of change in the community, or?
There is. Actually, that's something that we have worked on since the beginning with our programs. And we actually have, as much as possible, the participants really either learn about their neighborhood or meet with the client. So they really understand, for instance, the diversity of their neighborhood. Why is this fence important for that neighborhood? So there is that sense of, especially so many of them coming from affordable homes, it's really important for them because it's going back to neighborhoods or people they can relate to.